top investors watching your money. Joining me right now is the University of Akron Investment Fund Chairman Dennis Gartman, Payne Capital Management President Ryan Payne, and Mahoney Asset Management CEO Ken Mahoney. Gentlemen, thanks very much for being here. We have a market that is losing steam fast. We are now at the lows of the morning. The Dow Industrials are down 165 points. This is on a New York Times story I mentioned a minute ago. It is calling, the United States is calling for a pause on Johnson & Johnson's vaccine after reports of blood clotting. As this story hit the tape, you saw markets worsen pretty significantly, and we are at the lows of the morning. We are ahead of a key inflation report. The March Consumer Price Index is out in about an hour, and the expectations call for a gain of 0.5% month over month, and year over year, a gain of 2.5%. Dennis Gartman, we're still getting the news and information on this pause that the United States is calling for on the J&J vaccine, but clearly markets are looking at this story as if perhaps this is a pause in the reopening. That's going to impact the economy. That's going to impact jobs. That's going to impact normalization. J&J shares are down almost 3% right now on this report, again, that the United States is calling for a pause on the J&J vaccine after clotting cases, according to the New York Times. Your reaction to this impact?
Clearly, it's not good news. This is just coming out in the last 15 or 20 minutes. We've been opening, the economy has been opening on vaccines, on a better circumstance prevailing concerning COVID-19. All of a sudden, we have a news of that's very deleterious. So I've thought stock prices were extremely high to begin with. I'm not surprised that we're seeing this sort of reaction. We'll see if the reaction continues through the course of the day. As I said, I've been expecting to see stock prices decline. I think the news has been deleterious for stock prices on balance from the monetary authorities have been expansionary. Inflation is going to be far higher than expected. I think stock prices are extremely expensive. We'll see if this news today really follows through. In the past, I've been wrong because what we've seen is news has been ill, and the market takes it, closes higher. If we open lower this morning and stay lower all day long, then I think it'll be time to see the stock market decline 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% over the course of the next several months. CPI comes out today. The Fed has maintained that inflation is going to be on a yearly basis 2 to 2.5%. I think they're absolutely wrong. Today's CPI number, the consensus is 0.5% increase. I think it'll be 0.6 or 0.7% increase, and I think that'll have a very detrimental impact upon the bond market. So I view the news this morning as being quite bearish, to be quite honestly.
All right, so you want to sell into any rally. You've been saying that for the last few weeks anyway, Dennis, because of your worries about inflation. This makes things even worse. Let me just bring you some headlines here. The Food and Drug Administration and the CDC, they are the two agencies that are set to call for the Johnson & Johnson single-dose vaccine to be stopped, to be paused in the United States after 6 women developed blood clots. The stock is trading down this morning, and that is the major headline moving markets. The two federal authorities say they're going to stop using the vaccine at federal sites, and they will be urging states to do so too. And this was first broken by the New York Times this morning. 7 million people in the U.S. have received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine so far. The 6 recipients who developed the clots were aged between 18 and 48 years old. We are waiting to hear from the CDC and the FDA directly. And this pause on the J&J vaccine, but it certainly is impacting markets. Ken, we've also got breaking news this morning on the biggest SPAC merger ever. Singapore-based ride-hailing giant Grab announcing it's set to go public through a merger with Altimeter Growth Corporation. This values the company at nearly $40 billion. This is a SoftBank-backed company. It will receive $4.5 billion in cash as part of this deal. It comes as U.S. regulators are looking at a crackdown on SPACs over accounting practices. Do you expect this wave of SPACs to continue, and would you buy into this one?
We're not going to grab this one, Maria. No way. So first, let's go back a few weeks where the SPACs were all the rage, right? I mean, my gosh, ripping and ripping. But no, we've seen it fade the last few weeks because regulators are starting getting in the pool here. In fact, actually, many of these SPACs came in at $10 a share which is net asset value, and actually they're below net asset value now. And the regulators are really looking at the warrants. So again, to sweeten the deal to get investors, to get shares and warrants, how do you evaluate that for accounting purposes? And also, the SEC is not liking all the speculation around a celebrity SPAC, throw your name out there and put a SPAC into it. At the end of the day, these mergers may happen fast and furious right now, Maria, to try to get under the wire of the SEC. But right now, the way we look at it, there's so much supply. We don't like that supply, do we, Dennis? Supply really, no. Right now, you pay for SPACs exceed all of 2020. Think about that. And by the way, going forward, if the SEC starts circling around something, they're going to take a bite. I'm not sure how much flesh they're going to get, but they're going to take some bite out of this thing.
Yeah, it's a good point. So you want to stay away from that then. But what about the broader averages reacting so aggressively to this New York Times report? We're waiting to hear from the FDA and the CDC and their calls to pause the J&J vaccine on these reports of blood clotting. Big impact here. Markets are now at the lows of the morning.
It's anything that's a surprise. Things were going along really well. 3 to 4 million vaccinated per day. In fact, or the weekend one was over 4 million vaccinated. And you start seeing down the road, 6 months now, 9 months down the road, we're going to get out of this pickle. And then this story hits. And again, it's going to take a lot for this market to digest this because the market's going. It was thinking more like A, C, D, E, F, G. It actually is going to go A, G, C. It's not going to go the order of which we wanted to go with this type of announcement.
Understood. And as it's March, reaching all-time highs, cracking the 62,000 mark this morning. Wall Street gearing up for the cryptocurrency exchange Coinbase to go public tomorrow. That's happening on the NASDAQ. How far can this move go, Ryan?
I mean, it's kind of like the SPAC market, and Dennis Gartman quoted T.S. Eliot last week, so I want to keep it highbrow this morning, and I'm going to quote Voltaire. The more often a stupidity is repeated, the more it gets the appearance of wisdom. So the higher that the price of Bitcoin goes, the more everyone's buying into it. But I think the reality of it is, when you break it down, there's no intrinsic value here. It's extremely volatile. It's so volatile, to put it in perspective, because a lot of times it gets equated to gold. $90 million can move, an inflow of $90 million can move Bitcoin by 1%. That's 1/20th what you'd have to put in gold to move it 1%. So, the volatility is just astronomical. We know it can go down as much as 80% like it did in 2018. And one of the scary things about Coinbase is, I saw an advertisement come up on my Facebook a couple of days ago, and they allow you to borrow against your Bitcoin at 8%, great rate given the fact that rates are so low. So I can't imagine how many people are going to get wiped out eventually because of, again, the volatility in this investment. If it goes down big and you're borrowing against it, you get a margin call. It's kind of reminiscent of the housing bubble when people were borrowing against phantom values and all these different real estate projects that were basically vacant properties, if you remember what that looked like back in 08 and 09.
Oh, yeah.
So I think from all perspectives here, it's a very dangerous place to be. Now, you can vote on my Instagram stories this morning because I asked the people today what they think about Bitcoin. I personally think it's going to end bad, may go up in the short term. Remember, tulips, one tulip could buy a house in the Netherlands in the 1600s. A tulip costs like $1 today. I think Bitcoin's going to end up the same way.
Wow. Well, that's aggressive. We'll see if our viewers agree with you. Voltaire, T.S. Eliot. I got to bring my A game with you guys. Dennis Gartman, Ryan Payne, Ken Mahoney.
That's the way we roll.
Thank you, gentlemen.
That's the way
you roll. Thank you so much. Good to see all of you today. Have a great Tuesday. We got a market that is